this is the number that got everyone all excited last month. We have a press conference when these numbers are released, and a lot of the print media are there. Van Olwick from NBC was there, and basically looked around the room when our chief economist announced the number, a decline of 20-some%, and you could see people shaking their heads, like, is this really the right number? We saw a decline in existing home sales of 27% month to month between June and July, 29% in the Northeast area. Not good news. But what's the context of all of that? If you kind of draw an imaginary line there and say, what are we on in terms of trend? We're actually, so far this year, at a rate of just over 5 million home sales a year. That's where we've been, and actually a little bit better than last year. So despite the ups and downs, and it's kind of hard to read, and you really don't know where we're at, and even including that awful July number, we're actually a little bit above average from where we were in the last year or so. So in the context of where we're at, things are not as bad as that one number appeared. Next slide, please. In terms of the number of homes on the market, of course, we had a big spike there. People didn't buy homes in July. The inventory didn't change a whole lot, so we had a big spike in inventory. So there's some concern there. We'll see in the next month how that changes. So instead of 12 months, of course, we're going to go down to 6, 7, 8 months to provide a little price stability and a little bit more health in the housing market. Next slide. But now you can see the anguish that the existing home sales numbers when they were released cause. And this is obviously a little bit of an exaggeration. As I said, when we look around the news conference, this is basically, with a little exaggeration, the expression we saw, and we saw it in the headlines following. Straightforward one from Bloomberg, U.S. existing home sales punched by record. It's a true statement. Next. A little more doctor. Home sales eye-wateringly weak. I'm not sure I like that phrase, but Wall Street Journal. Housing market plunged in July, fueling anxiety. So it's not just a bad month, it's fueling anxiety at this point. And finally, Barron's house sales plunge shows Washington's futility. So it's not just a bad number. Now we're into, Washington doesn't even need to wake up in the morning because it's a futile cause at this point. My only point is that we don't yet know how to put all of this in context, and that's why I want to spend a little time on that, saying we're okay despite the numbers we saw bouncing around in July. Now, one of the things that we get toward the end here and try to finish up quickly is the tax credit no doubt pulled sales forward. That's pretty clear. But did it have any other benefit? And I think you can see from this slide that it did. This is the year-over-year change in home prices. It's NAR, our home price, the government's home price index, basically tracking Fannie and Freddie mortgages, and Case-Shiller. If you look toward there at the right, it's basically all right around the 0 line after plunging in the double digits. So what that did is, and you saw the context of the numbers and the month supply and so forth, at the lower priced homes who were appealing to first-time buyers, home prices at the lower end held up very well and actually started to increase. And that's the majority of the market. And then the high-end homes with mortgage issues and jumbo mortgages, that's a kind of a different universe in terms of what the prices look like. But still, this is one of the benefits of the home buyer tax credit, aside from the fact that the number of sales was up for several months. Next slide. Just to put New Hampshire in context, home sales strong in many states. You can see the range. This is data on a quarterly basis. We have Nevada is at the low end, negative numbers in terms of number of home sales. North Dakota, the strongest state in the economy in terms of in the U.S. in terms of its economy, increasing by about 50%. True, it's a small state, but that's been a consistent pattern. Next slide, please. Price changes, again, one of the messages we try to get out, not only in the news releases and press conferences, is the national numbers are important, but it's what's going on in your local market that really matters for home buyers in that community. So you can see the range of prices here. Cumberland, Maryland, minus 15%, to Akron, Ohio, plus 36% in terms of year-over-year price change in the last quarter. So a huge variety, huge variation in terms of what's going on locally. That's the message that we hope everyone in this room is bringing their buyers and sellers. And despite the importance of the national numbers, this is what really matters in terms of what's going on in the local community. Next slide. Quick look at home prices in New Hampshire, basically tracking the U.S. over the last couple quarters. A little on the negative side in terms of the numbers that the government keeps track of based on Fannie and Freddie mortgages. Next slide. Now, the last piece of information I want to leave you with is foreclosure. So we have all of this news, we know the inventory numbers, and we saw a spike in terms of months supply. The question that always follows is, how many other homes are there out there yet to come to the market? What's the shadow inventory out there? How many homes are just waiting to flood onto the market, and it's going to upset the housing market again? We're going to see lots of inventory, prices decline. That's the pessimist view of what's going to happen over the next several quarters, especially if the economy continues to plod along at a relatively weak pace. Well, we did some work on trying to quantify what the shadow inventory is at the national level. Every organization that follows this has their own estimates. Some are relatively low, some are very high. There's no particular definition of what the shadow inventory is. Some organizations say it's anything about to go into foreclosure. Others say it's anyone who's been late on their mortgage payment by at least 60 days. So there's no standard definition. So we took the information we have, made some reasonable assumptions, and so our estimate of the shadow inventory is about 2.5 million units at the national level. It's kind of in the middle of the range of the lowest to the highest. Now, one of the things that has maybe puzzled us a little bit more is there's all of this inventory sitting out there. You know, vacant homes, homes lenders have taken over, homes that are in some stage of foreclosure. Why haven't they been put on the market at this point? Why haven't we seen the other shoe fall, so to speak, in terms of all of this inventory coming on the market? There's probably a couple of reasons. Lenders are probably being very cautious so that they don't walk into a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. So there's some caution on the part of lenders who have taken over these properties. We don't want to put them all on the market all at once. The process of foreclosure, depending on which state you're in, can be very long. In a judicial state, it can take months, if not a couple of years. So a home may be in foreclosure, but it's somehow caught in the process of being through the foreclosure process and being taken over by the lender. So there's lots of things, lots of headwinds that are preventing that huge amount of shadow inventory, whether it's 2.5 million, 3, whatever the estimate is, from coming onto the market all at once. So with that in mind, here's what we have for New Hampshire relative to the U.S. In terms of the number of foreclosures started, and I guess the best analogy here is the bathtub. This is the water running into the bathtub as far as new foreclosures. And obviously it's increased, you can see the lower line, but we're right around 1% relative to something a little bit higher in the U.S. in terms of the water running into the bathtub, the new foreclosures each quarter. And in terms of the mortgages in foreclosure, so these are the ones that are accumulated in that pipeline. This is the water in the bathtub. And you can see obviously the U.S. number, the red line, is almost double what it is for New Hampshire. So that equates to about 2 million homes in foreclosure at the national level, just about 5,000 in New Hampshire. So again, going through this theme here that we started with, no doubt the economy is slower than we'd all would like it to be. Jobs aren't being created as fast as we would all like them to be. Home sales are, depending on which community you're in, are either okay or maybe not as good as we'd like them to be. But relative to what we're seeing at the national level, things are better in this region than they are in many other regions. And you don't even have to point to Southern California or Nevada to make a comparison. We're in much better shape here in many regards than we are in other areas. And so I'll leave you with that thought. I believe that's the last slide. And happy to take some questions. We'll go through this very quickly. One more slide. And I guess this is the risk going forward. We're talking about the recovery. We talked a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about the idea that interest rates may increase or not depending on the recovery. So going forward, we're at 4.5% mortgage rates. Are they going to go down any further than this? Probably not. Next slide. Home sales. Financing tends to be one of the issues that consumers tell us is still the hardest part. Even if you have good credit, it takes too long or seems to take much longer than it should. And if you have less than great credit, then it becomes 100 times more difficult. So that's going to be a headwind on the housing market. And home prices, we talked a little bit about the shadow inventory, but consumer confidence, and consumer confidence not only about what's going on locally, but what's going on in terms of the messages that everyone's receiving nationally is probably one of the biggest factors and ones that we really can't quantify very well at all at this point. It's kind of a nebulous, cloudy concept. We all know it. We all can feel it, perhaps, whether or not we or the people we work with have some sense of confidence about the future. We can't put a number on it. And finally, Don't have time to say anything about the commercial market. It's a wreck in most areas, so I'll leave it at that.